Hello everyone, we are going to start project number 24 tonight, which is just a simple plain offset with a curved back and a curved throat. This page of the plan here that we're looking at has got just a little bit of a write-up general description of how a thing goes together, the three-dimensional drawing there, 3D drawing of how it's supposed to look, and then this page here is actually the actual dimensions that we are going to cut and fabricate this piece out to. So for starts, we're going to start with the left hand and the right hand cheeks tonight, and probably go into the heel and the throats a little later on. So let's get on into it. Here we go. Alright, so the first thing I did when I looked at my drawing is I went and figured out what my dimensions had to be. So I noticed my width is 8.5 inches, and then my height is made up of this 8-inch opening plus the additional quarter on the top and the bottom with the 2-inch offset there. So we're looking at 8, 10, and about a half inches. That would be the final dimensions of the part. But what the plan doesn't do a very good job is showing you that there's a dimension line here that they've actually got it drawn on here, but every time I've ever done this project, it runs off below the part a little bit. So we got to make it about an inch or so longer than the actual part as well. So let's get into that next. So what I did is I cut just an 8.5 inch piece out of the bin. That was my width of my part, and then I'm just going to start up maybe an inch or inch and a half off the bottom of the sheet. And that should give me enough room there to do what we need to do. So let's see if we can get it done with the inch, and if I can't, I will show you how to make that part, like say if that was the width, or say if that metal was just that small, what you can do. I'll give you a demonstration of how you can actually put another piece of metal underneath it. You can clamp it together with a pair of pliers, vice grips, and then you can extend your marks off there and use that in place of having to try to find a longer sheet. So anyway, I'm going to say this 1-inch mark is going to be the base of my dimension or my measurement marks. From there on up is where we're going to start. So with that being said, I'm going to use my square here tonight for most of it, and the first thing we need to do is we need to lay out the edges there. There's 2 3/4 inch edges down both sides, so let's go ahead and get that up out of there, and then go ahead and put those marks on each side. There's a 3/4 inch dimension on the scribe, so we're going to mark them right off. There's the left hand part, and then while we're at it, you'll notice the heights are different, but we're going to set up the right hand mirror image of it as well. Three-quarter down each side. Looks like this one's got some marks from being in the bin from a different project, which will be no big deal because they're going to be cut off later on. So let's focus on the left-hand part anyway to begin here, and then we'll work on the right-hand section there. So I'm basically using, again, this 1-inch line as my base of my sheet, and then all the dimensions will be up and down from that mark. So let's get ourselves a 1/4 inch dimension down here off the bottom of the sheet. That's where we're going to say our 1 inch is at, below that. So I'm going to measure up 1 1/4 inches with my square. And if you like, if you're not afraid to use your tools to their fullest potential, you can just scribe it, or if you don't want to do that, that's perfectly okay, and just use the scribe and run the mark down the side as it is. And we'll run that all the way down. Right off the sheet. So that should be our 1.25 up. Yeah, it looks pretty good. Now that I've got my 1.25, I've got the base or the edge of the part there drawn, and from that mark, if we look at the plan there, if we transfer that mark, that 1.25 to here, over to this side, we've got to go up an additional 2-inch offset. So we're just going to measure that. So an 1.25 off the bottom of the sheet, up additional 2 inches from that. Sets you at 3.25. And then I'm going to back that off a 1/4 inch as well for the take up. So I've got this point and this point drawn on the plans at this point in time. So you should have 2 inches from there to this point. There's a lot of scratch marks on this one, so I might just put some divots in here. So I won't lose them later on. And again, 2 inches from the upper mark down should also be where we need that mark to be. So between the two divots, you got a 1/4 inch difference there. This side is not crucial, but the other side is. So we're looking at 1 inch and 1.25 off the bottom of the sheet there on our 3/4 inch mark. So the inch mark, and the 1.25 mark off that sheet. Just so we can find them back a little later. Now that I got this 2-inch offset in here, again I'll put a couple more divots there. Hopefully you can pick them lines up a little better with that. From each side, we're going to have an 8-inch opening. So an 8-inch opening from the base divots, and then an 8-inch opening from the upper divots. So we'll have that 2-inch transition set up in there. So we're going to measure that. 8 inches in between our marks. And then don't forget to add on your additional 1/4 inch for the lock form. So from here to here, we're going to set down, so it's going to be transitioning down just like the plan is. So again, on the other side, we've got an 8-inch opening as well. So again, finding the points in between them. Those marks there, we're going to mark that at 8 inches. And that looks like that's fine. And then again, add on the additional 1/4 inch from that mark. So we're going to have something that's kind of looking like a nice sweeping S through here, and then same from here down. It'll transition down that direction. Alright, moving on then. The next thing that we got to do is we got to find the midway point between our 8-inch marks here and here, up here on the left side, so we can basically get a center dimension line or a center offset mark here. So again, I'm just going to pull it out to my 8-inch mark between the two, and I'm going to center that, and I'm going to mark 4 inches right on the 3/4 inch mark. And then I'm not going to put any divots in here because this will actually be seen later on, or potentially could be seen depending on how the project is set up. We'll do the same up here. Again, finding our center points. 8 inches, half of it is 4 on those marks. So right on the 3/4 inch mark from the previous edging is what we're looking for. And then I'm going to take my ruler from point to point here. Find those two. And we'll draw that across there. The next thing I want to do is I want to find the center between the part this direction. A couple different ways you can do that. You can obviously measure it. You take your tape measure, set it, pull it out to the nearest foot and get yourself something pretty precise that way. Or, if you don't like to do the math, you can just simply take your dividers and go a slight amount beyond the center point. Tighten it up. And then strike an arc through that direction, and then move it over without adjusting it. Move it over to the other side, the other point, and then strike an arc like that. So you got kind of this double fishtail looking thing here. And then with your square, where these two crossed, where these two arcs came down and crossed out on the points, we're just going to line up our straight edge in between them. In between them two marks, right in the center here, is the center of that distance. So that'll actually establish point 3. It's important to look at the drawing here. If you go back and if you actually look at the plan, all of these points represent these points up here, and they will show you how to lay this thing out pretty nicely, actually. So anyway, this is going to be point number 3 in the middle of that sheet. Once I've got point number 3, the exact center established, I need to establish points 4 and 5 from, which is the halfway points between 1 and 3, or rather we're going to bisect the distance between 1 and 3 as well. So again, just like before, we took our dividers. You can measure it. It's maybe not the most precise way to do it though. Or again, take your dividers, set them on the point there, and then strike your arcs from your midway points there. So I struck an arc from point 1, and now I'm going to strike another arc from point 3 that we found with the same method as before. And that's going to establish points 4 and 5 down here. Now we're going to take our straight edge and run a line through points 4 and 5, and from the line on point 1 straight down, we're going to establish point 6. So setting this thing up, you'll notice that it goes below the edge of the sheet, and that's why I set that up there an additional inch previously. So right where they cross, it appears to be on this one just at the bottom of the sheet, and that worked out pretty nicely. Sometimes they'll be a little bit lower, and that's fine. But if I would have cut the sheet off up here, it would have been too short. So anyway, this one came out pretty well. The next thing we're going to do then is we are going to start to establish our arcs for, I'll try to show you on here, from point 6, got to make that kind of small, from point 6 to here will give you that arc, and then smaller from point 6 to there will give you that portion of the arc. And then these actually come from the other side, and then you open it up and you establish the radius to 0.8 for that portion of the arc, not this last little bit, and the additional 1/4 inch. So let's do that next. So setting the sheet here, right where those points cross on that 3/4 inch mark, we're going to stretch that out there. And I'll try to show you this. In between the two marks, is our 8-inch opening. That's going to be the edge of the duct, but the pivot point is long below that. Okay, and you'll notice it doesn't come right out over here either on those divots, because there's got to be another. We got to basically do the same thing on the other side. So anyway, we're going to pull that arc all the way through there, and in all honesty, you should be able to do the same thing from this other side. If you flip it over, I'll just put a mark down here. Right now, this should be able to strike this arc down to the other one as well, if they're absolutely square and everything's identical. Okay, so from there to there, that gave you the first arc. And then let's take and increase that size by the 1/4 inch for the lock form machine. We'll strike that arc again, and then let's finish up the smaller radiuses on the bottom. Anyway, to get that short little arc in here, and then we're going to turn the sheet over, and basically just like we did before, we're going to perform that same function again from points 4 and 5, which this time will be upside down. 4 and 5, we're going to move over from point 3, and we're going to establish a new 4 and 5 point on the other side. And so we're going to do this same procedure from our center point, point 3 to 2. Here's point 2, here's point 3. We're going to strike an arc, and we're going to establish the center points using the bisect method again. And the bigger you make this, the more precise you're going to be. So I'm going to open that up a little bit. That's a little bit smaller than I like. That was maybe a little excessive. We'll strike this arc and that arc, and then move over to the center point, which was point 3 on the sheet. And we're going to find the crosshairs of each of those. And it looks as if I need to extend that up here a little bit further. Yep, that'll work. And then again, taking some time, I'll see if I got a Sharpie here. Again, let's take a minute here to mark these 2 points. So here's where our bisected marks are, here and here. We've got the center point. This is point number 3. And then we've got point number 3 is there. And then over here was point 4. And down here was point number 5. And this is point number 1. Over here is point number 2. And this is a new 4 and 5. I guess we'll do it like this. 4 up here and 5 down here for that next point. Now that we have those, we are going to run a straight edge through 4 and 5 and establish point 6 again on the bottom. So again, if I cut the sheet off up here on the base and that was square, we would have been short on our dimensions. Okay, so that's going to establish point number 6 right here. Alright, once we've got point number 6 established, that's going to be our pivot point to tie the radiuses back together from the other point number 6 down there. So again, just setting them in our divot points in them. Should be a real small little area there. And then we're going to make that quite a bit bigger. Go from 0.6 all the way up to the edge of the sheet here, point number 11. And they should cross with this down here someplace. Like that. And then another additional 1/4 inch on there for the easy edger. And they again should cross right there at that point. So, with that being said, this is what we're looking at from those additional points when we have the final product. Got the 2 bins for the easy edge, and everything's taken into account. Now we got to be careful. We've got to make certain we make a mirror image of this. Otherwise, if you put them together, these are the same with the lines up. If we were to flip them over, they're going to be backwards. So we have to mirror image this on the other sheet. So let's flip the book back over. Again, we'll start just as before, but everything that was on this side is now going to be on the opposite edge of the sheet. Looks like we got 2 identical parts there that match really, really well. The next thing then is to notch those out. And then we'll follow it up by running them through the easy edger. Okay, there we have it. We got the left hand and the right hand cheek for this transition takeoff with that project, the plain offset with the curved back and throat there for project 24. So hopefully you enjoyed this, hopefully it helps, and we'll catch you on the next one. Thanks for watching.